Well, good morning. I'm here in downtown Charleston. It's Sunday, May 31st, and as you probably are aware, last night there were protests in the city that turned violent. There were rocks thrown, there were tear gas canisters let go to try to disperse the crowd. A curfew was put into effect at 11 p.m. last night. It ran through this morning early, and today we recorded our service yesterday for today's Pentecost Sunday events, and normally I'd be live with you on Sunday morning for the regular service, but today it's all recorded because it was a festival service for Pentecost. And this morning I wanted to be able to address you and talk about our city for a moment in real time. And so I'm live here this morning downtown at Marion Square, as you can see. Last night on King Street there were crowds that some of whom turned violent, and I know that sometimes when things like this happen, it's a situation where the violence in the protest becomes the issue, and there is no way anyone can excuse the violence that took place here in Charleston or some of these other cities around the country over the last couple of days. We thought in Charleston we were immune to this kind of thing because of the community that we have and the grace that's been shown over the course of time. But today I want to while decrying the violence, while being disappointed by what happened last night, and by being disturbed by seeing the things that happened and having folks that we know in the city affected by it, I do still want to remind everyone that what's taking place around the country, some of the violent part can be attributed to all sorts of different people and ideologies. But the despair and the disturbance about injustice for people of color, honestly, that's legitimate and real. Anyone that saw that video of George Floyd being held to the ground with a knee on his neck, I couldn't watch it personally. You were watching someone being killed in a long, slow process. It just heartbreaking. And I know that it could have been anybody down there, but it was a black man who was being killed by a white man, a white police officer. And it's heartbreaking to see again. We saw the deal with Ahmaud Arbery. We've seen other events in the last few weeks. And so our friends in the black community have been mistreated over the course of centuries, and the remaining and leftover more subtle racism that exists in the world is disturbing and heartbreaking. And my best black pastor friends this week, I've been trying to have conversations, and all of them to a person have told me we're weary of this and we don't know what else to do at this point. And basically they're telling me it's time for the white community to be as outraged and disappointed by some of this injustice as the black community. And so this morning on Pentecost Sunday, my prayer is the Spirit of God will motivate our hearts to seek to love Christ and serve His purpose in all things, to seek to treat people, no matter what color or background, as if they're made in God's image, because they are. And my prayer is that we'll look upon our neighbors and friends who are people of color and do all we can to build bridges of friendship and relationship. Do all we can to develop those relationships so that we can have better understanding of how it is to be in their shoes, and how we can help love and serve them and help make a difference so that this kind of injustice that takes place even today in our country would end, and that we'd have a new vision for America that's inclusive of everybody and sees everyone as made in God's image, even people we disagree with politically. They're made in God's image, and we've got to see people as God sees them and love them as God loves them. And so on this Pentecost Sunday, my prayer for First Baptist Church, my prayer for this great city that we love, is that we would walk in oneness as people of faith, as Christian people, that we would build these bridges between our friends at Mars Street Baptist and Emmanuel AME and Holy Trinity with Pastor Thompson, that we build these bridges among the fellowship of believers, black and white, and that we become an example of what it's like to work toward justice and work toward a community that loves and cares for one another in the right way. And so this morning, with a broken heart, I'm praying for my friend Pastor Leonard Griffin at Mars Street Baptist Church. I'm praying for our pastor friend Anthony Thompson, Holy Trinity Reformed Episcopal Church. I'm praying for Eric Manning at Emmanuel AME Church, and so many others. Charles Murray at First Baptist of James Island. And I'm asking the Lord to give them blessing and their churches blessing. And pray for our community, that while protests are legitimate and real, that violence won't take place anymore, and that some of these extreme violent folks would find their way to out of the city at the moment and not affect the people here. So today, I'm praying for the Spirit of God to fill our church and churches all across this city to bring the hope of the gospel, because the only real answer is not political, it's spiritual. Only the gospel can bring this kind of change. Only the gospel can make us able to build these bridges and break these barriers and remove these injustices. So by God's grace, the gospel will prosper in our city so that the oneness of Christ would be filled in this place. So today on Pentecost Sunday, I welcome you to worship at 10:30, and we have what I think is a beautiful service for us this morning, but I had to come before you this morning to address what's happened in the city last night. I'm praying that you are safe, but also that we together may walk in truth and the love and grace of Christ. God's blessing for a great morning.